Okay. Hi, everybody. So, welcome to our pre-law transfer event. My name is Rudy Patel, and I'm the CEO and founder of Legal. We are three of us here today, and we're going to be going through pre-law transfer advice. So, stay tuned. I also have Miriam and Ellen with me. We'll shortly introduce ourselves. But until then, let's hang tight. So, just as an overview of what's going to happen today, we're going to start off with introductions, then talking about how to choose the right university for you, how to succeed as a transfer student, law school applications, and then tie everything off with a question and answer session.
Hi everyone, my name is Ellen Manoukian. I'm the COO of Legal WILP currently. So I transferred from Los Angeles Valley College to UCLA 3 years ago, I think. I graduated from UCLA last year, so I'm a class of 2024. I majored in political science originally, and then when I transferred to UCLA, I decided to also have a minor in labor studies, which was a very good decision because I think political science classes were not um, as difficult, I would say. So I think having a minor as a political science major is just fills your schedule. And then in community college, I did the Transfer Alliance Honors Program, which was LAVC was specifically with UCLA. I'm not sure how it works with other community colleges, but it was a program with UCLA, which doesn't guarantee your transfer to UCLA, but it just helps you with the process. So I took honors courses in addition to my regular courses. Um, I'm not sure about how many courses they were, but I think they were like 5 courses. And then I also did this freedom writing program actually with Pasadena Community College, which was a trip to Washington, D.C., and I was able to tour the White House, the Capitol, the Pentagon, and I think this is a really big part of my career in a way that it just uh, kind of motivated me in a way, seeing how the actual legislative process works in person. I just um, I kind of like got sure that that's what I want to do in the future. That's where I want to be. That's the field where I want to work in. So that's why I consider it a very big part of my kind of journey. And then during my community college years, COVID was happening. So most of the internships and job opportunities were online. Well, in the beginning, they were none actually. And then they later transferred to being remotely and online. So I had an opportunity to work for a um, human rights law firm remotely, and it was just an internship where I had to work with clients to just get some information on the cases, and then I also had to research some legislation to help with drafting the complaints and everything. So it was also a really good exposure to the field as a community college student, because later on it's really hard to get exposure to the field. So I think it was good that I was able to somehow get that exposure so early on. And then I honestly my main focus in community college was just maintaining a really high GPA because, as I said, everything was remotely. So while I was trying to just get other things done as well, to have extracurriculars on my resume, I realized that just focusing on my GPA and having maintaining it as high as possible was my main goal. So um, I tried to take harder classes as well because I was enjoying them in community college. I also tried to just balance my schedule and not try to do too much, so to not put my GPA under any risks. And then when I transferred to UCLA, I realized how amazing the transfer community was. We actually had a lot of transfer resources there. We have a whole I think it was like a whole floor, like a whole room, which has like different offices of people who actually help you. They have different events there, and they're very, very helpful. So I went to a lot of events and I was a part of the community as well. And later on, I discovered a lot of pre-law organizations, and then I got offered to be a part of Legal, to actually create Legal. So I was very honored to create Legal with Reedy, and then later on, Miriam joined us. So yeah, we created Legal. So I later on became I was vice president of project management in the beginning, and then I later on became the co-president of Legal at UCLA. So that was a very fun time. And then I also had a chance to be the event coordinator for Armenian Pre-Law Student Association, which was also really nice to be a part of my culture. And I also worked for UCLA's Law School's Dean's Office. I was a student assistant there, and it was just nice to see how the law school just works from the inside. I think that would be all. That would be my introduction. So yeah, I'll pass it to Reedy.
All right, thank you, Ellen, for that. But before we move on, do you want to share a little bit about what you're doing right now as a legal assistant?
In community college?
Oh, no, I meant right now, like post-grad, what your life has.
Postgrad, sorry. Yes, so I'm a legal assistant right now. I'm working for a personal injury law firm, and my job is basically to write complaints. And I have a lot of exposure to the field of specifically personal injury part of it. And honestly, it's very different after graduating from college and not having like super major exposure to the actual like law firms, and then working for law firms. It's very surreal to see how like the actual process for drafting a complaint and then filing it with the court, and then how the whole process works. So it was really nice to just get that exposure. So yeah.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Preeti Patel. I am the CEO and founder of Legal. I went to community college at Cyprus, and I also majored in political science. I was a part of the honors program as well as Ellen, and for us, how it worked is there were leadership roles in it, so I was president of it. I started off my first year as secretary, and then I ended up as my second year before I transferred. I also founded our Model United Nations team, and I was at IMUNA staffer. So IMUNA is a nonprofit organization that holds the world's largest Model United Nations conference in New York every year. It's for high school students, but I was a staffer, which meant I helped create it. Eventually, I went up the ranks in IMUNA and became chief of staff for the org, but I started off doing that in community college and absolutely loved it. During my time at community college, I interned with our local assemblywoman, which was a great experience. And I, similar to Ellen, focused on my GPA. Later on, we're going to be getting more into the specifics of why your GPA matters so much and the hard statistics. But if you're still in community college, I really encourage you to work on your GPA, focus on your grades, while also balancing your extracurricular activities. Going into UCLA, I also majored in political science, and I continued being a part of the honors program. So if you're part of the honors program in CC and you maintain good grades, you get invited to the college honors program at UCLA. And I was really interested in that and continued. In the beginning, it was challenging because the classes, of course, are going to be a bit more rigorous. They're smaller class sizes, and there's a lot of things that you actually need to get done. And, you'll be lost in the beginning of how to navigate it, but I truly think that the program ultimately was worth it because I found a lot of friends through it and I formed close relationships. So I think that was good. And I worked on independent study research with them, which I think can help with your law school applications as well, because they're always looking for ways for you to strengthen your writing. Similar as before, I did Model United Nations. I just continued on. I interned with the Los Angeles Superior Court, and I also interned with the Department of Justice. Both were great experiences. As you can see in the beginning, I was very focused on the public sector, and that's something that I was really passionate about. Currently, I'm not part of the public sector. I went a bit more private and work at a law firm, but I really cherish those experiences. And I think when you're just starting off, getting hands-on experiences on both sides can be very beneficial for you to understand what your ultimate goal is. Going off of that, my first year at UCLA, I came in and founded Legal, and Miriam and Ellen helped me create this amazing organization. And now that we've expanded at different colleges, and we still work with UCLA, Irvine Valley College, and we're still growing. But Legal will always hold a special place in my heart because I found some of my closest friends through it. I got to see the impact that it made on a lot of you guys' lives. So I'm just really grateful for it. During UCLA, I was also the editor-in-chief of BMOS, which is a part of the Political Science Undergraduate Council. So at UCLA, if you're a poli-sci major, you can apply to be a council member. The department chooses around 20 students each year, and you work on hosting different events for the department. If you need to get more funding for XYZ, or if there's a lot of complaints, there's not enough classes, you're like the student representative of the major. So that's basically what a council member does. And we also produce annually a journal which has different political science topics written on it by fellow students. So I was the editor-in-chief of that both my junior year and my senior year, which taught me a lot of critical writing skills, editing. I had experience with that when I was in high school, being a part of our publishing department there. So I just translated those skills here, and it was a great experience. Going on from that, following the same public sector field that I'm still pretty interested in. I was the chair of the cyber committee for the Bruins International Relations Society, BIRN. What we did here is we would meet bi-weekly and we would talk about different cyber events going on, and I would host events and case studies to discuss with my peers things that are emerging and how we can address them. We had different guest speakers come, and being a chair of this committee was also a great experience because I'm interested in national security and the IP side of things, and I learned a lot. In regards to UCLA, I still focused a lot on my GPA. That was my priority, just because I heard that law schools sometimes can be a numbers game, but I also focused on service. So as you can see, I ended up with summa cum laude, got the Chancellor Service Award, and I was also the political science commencement speaker for our graduation. So that, I think, is the highlight of my UCLA career, being commencement speaker. My friends heard the speech 1,000 times when I was preparing for it, and I'm just really grateful for that experience. And I'll always remember it. But yeah, that's pretty much my experience. And I work also as a legal assistant at a law firm. My law firm focuses on personal injury as well as employment, but I'm more on the employment law side of things, but I do get exposure to personal injury. And it's like Ellen said, I learned a lot, and it's very different how things work in the public sector and just government versus the fast pace of the private sector. And again, if you have the time and you're fortunate, please get experience in both so you can figure out what you want to do before you go to law school, because law school is such a big investment. You want to know what you're doing before you go in. But that's all for me, passing it on to Miriam.
Hi everyone, my name is Miriam. I'm a bit of an unorthodox transfer. I transferred from a different UC. I went to UC Irvine out of high school, where I also majored in political science. Over there, I was a part of the Pre-Law Society. I was at the time a outreach intern, and I spearheaded a program where I was collecting resources on different classes that were helpful for pre-law students, different opportunities, including job opportunities and internship opportunities, as well as like LSAT studying and tutoring opportunities. While at UC Irvine, I was also in their honors program. I also focused on maintaining a high GPA at the time. My goal was not to transfer, but I knew that a high GPA was important regardless, especially for law school. And I was also involved in various ethnic clubs and organizations, which is something that I think a lot of people might think doesn't matter, but it does show that you're involved in your community and that you have a stake in what happens and that you are kind of building a space for your community. Once I transferred to UCLA, I was very lucky to get in on Legal when it was kind of first starting, and I was a manager for our public relations team. And I later became the vice president of public relations in my senior year. That was honestly one of the highlights of my time at UCLA, and I feel like I really was able to kind of marry my interest in the law, being first generation, and my creativity through that role. So that's something I continue now because I'm the chief communications officer of Legal WILP. So it's really fun being able to kind of marry all my interests together. While at UCLA, I was also a Justice Corps full-time year member, which is a program where you get to intern at the LA Superior Courts in their self-help centers and help people fill out various documents regarding like divorce, eviction, name changes, and things of that sort. I also held an internship at a housing law firm. It focused on tenant law, and it was really, again, I started off a lot more in the public interest realm. And I think that that was really a valuable experience for me because especially I went on later to do Justice Corps, and it's regionally in Los Angeles, housing is such a big problem. So kind of learning a little bit about the law there and tenant protections was really interesting. And I do hope to continue kind of that line of work once I'm in law school. A lot of law schools actually have clinics and such that focus on that. So if you're interested in something similar, that would be a really cool thing to get involved in. Like Ellen, I was also a dean's office assistant at the UCLA School of Law as a student worker. And once again, I made sure I kept my GPA up, and I graduated. I actually think it was cum laude, but and I was on the dean's honor roll every quarter because it's a quarter system. And I would say that I actually graduated early. I graduated after transferring. I graduated after 4 quarters instead of 6. And for me, it was just because I had kind of a head start, having already taken upper level courses at UC Irvine. But I would honestly say that every institution has its like pros and cons. I personally really loved UC Irvine's political science program, and for anyone who's considering UC Irvine, I think it's an amazing school and campus. But yeah, now I have a full-time job. I work as a faculty assistant at a law school, and I'm kind of exploring the academia side of law and yeah, applying to law school.
Thank you for that, Miriam. Ellen, do you want to talk about the application process?
Yes, of course. I'll start on touching up. I'll start with touching on a little of the like actual process, and then we can talk about the how to choose from a list of accepted universities. So the process for UC specifically, I think it was for me it went pretty easy because it was just one application for I believe 4 or 5 for universities, and all the aspects were the same for all of them. So yeah, and then there's the extracurriculars part on the application, the essays, and also your classes and everything that you have to fill out. So after getting accepted to universities, what my process was that when you start getting the decisions, after getting the decision, you also start getting financial aid. So first thing that we have is tuition, which is which is kind of, I think, connected to financial aid. So after you get your decision, you also get the financial aid, so you can which is a big part of the decision. So you can look and see how much aid you will receive for all the year. I think it's just a year actually, for the upcoming year, because then you have to renew your application, which obviously can also be a part of your decision. And then also transfer culture for UCLA, as I mentioned before, transfer culture is very big. We have a whole transfer community center, which creates a lot of events, especially in the beginning of the year. They have events for all the transfer people to just communicate with each other. I actually made a lot of friends through actual transfer events, which I think is very cool how UCLA has that culture. And honestly, transferring to UCLA, I thought that I'm gonna feel a little off, because when you transfer, you see how other people have already been there for 2 years, and then you're going as a junior, but you're starting from the beginning, so you don't know the school, you don't know how everything works, how the school culture and everything. So however, I think UCLA just embraces transfer students, and they don't make transfer students feel imposters, basically. So for average GPA, I think a lot of schools, as Rudy mentioned, a lot of schools have this numbers game. So they have like a median GPA for all their accepted students. So if there is a specific school where you want to go to, you should definitely look up the median GPA that they have for their incoming class, and try to kind of maintain your GPA close to that number. And also, obviously, opportunities offered at the university, especially for the field. I think this is something that before transferring, I was not aware of how different majors can have different resources at the university. So I think that while I loved UCLA, I loved the classes that I took there, I think that our pre-law opportunities could definitely get a little better. So if you're a pre-law, you should definitely look at the resources that the university where you want to transfer to offers. So for example, pre-law counseling. We were at UCLA, we had a lot of pre-law organizations, which was very helpful, because they hosted a lot of events. They hosted events with different law schools who came to campus to offer jobs. So I think we were very lucky to have all those pre-law organizations. However, in terms of having a specific counseling, I think we definitely could use a little more counseling. So, and obviously, as pre-law students, we all want to make impact in the future. So I think it is very important to keep in mind why we want to enter the field, why we want to become lawyers, and how we want to get there throughout the journey. Yeah, I will pass it to Reedy or Miriam if you guys want to add anything on the application process.
No, I think you touched on everything really well. We can now talk about, I can take how to succeed as a transfer student. These are just major big ideas, but they're very important. So I'll break it down. First, you need to create a study schedule that works best for you. So if you're not a morning person, you like to study at night, you just need to be cognizant of that. Don't try to change something if it's not broken. Most importantly, you got to just stay consistent. And when you first come in as a transfer student, you're going to feel imposter syndrome most likely. I felt it up until like second quarter of my senior year. So it sticks with you for a while. And when you go into the legal field, it's going to stick with you even then, but it's just something that you have to cope with. You got in for a reason. You can do well. You just need to apply yourself. But to make sure you have maximum success, I think it's better to start small than big. Only take on what you can handle and then build up. So for classes, when I first came into UCLA, an average student takes 3 to 4 classes. It's not like high school where you can take 5 and 6. You can if you want, but these classes are very rigorous with a lot of time commitment. I started off with just 3 classes. For clubs, I only was a part of my first year legal because legal took up a lot of time, and then the council. I already had Imuna with me, but I knew how to handle that because I had done that for the past 2 years before. But you start off small and then slowly start adding more things onto your work plate. I did not do any internships my junior year during the academic year. I only did it during the summer. And then my senior year, I had the internship with the DOJ carried on from the previous summer for the full academic year. But again, that was after I knew how to manage my schedule and to do things. When you first go in, you're going to see a lot of people doing a lot of things and overcommitting themselves. And I think one, that leads to burnout, but two, you might be disappointed at, your results in things. And because of that, it can like hamper your success in the future. You do want to make sure your grades are important. Your grades are important, so you do want to make sure that you're doing well in your classes and you can handle it. There's drop weeks, kind of where the first 2 weeks you can figure out if this class works for you or not. If you don't think you're going to get an A or like do really well in the class, or you might get something lower than a B, then I think you should drop the class, take something else. And the way that you kind of figure this out is every school kind of has their own version of Rate My Professor. I think look at that website religiously, ask friends, and figure out, what to do and factor that into your schedule. I did not work my first year, but my second year I did work. And I think, again, in the beginning, don't overburden yourself. When I was in my first quarter, there were people that were doing internships, they were working in classes. I fortunately had, some savings, so I didn't have to work my first quarter, but I think figure out what you need. And if you have the privilege, and you're fortunate in a position where you don't need to do as many things, your first quarter, take it easy, get the feel of the water. Then your second quarter, which is going to be winter quarter, take on more classes. If you choose to go to a semester type of school, the first, I think, 3-4 weeks, don't do much, don't overcommit, try to figure out the environment, and then add on. The third point is, I think, the most important, which is find a mentor and a community to feel a part of, because you're in a new environment and finding people that you can lean on is crucial. And having a mentor is very crucial. As Ellen mentioned in the last slide, we have a lot of pre-law and transfer society type communities. And my first quarter, I was paired with an upperclassman mentor through the pre-law transfer society. And up till this day, he's one of the greatest like mentors I've ever had. He told me that I should be a part of the honors program. He told me about A pluses and just how law schools weigh things differently. He taught me about, I think it's called, oh, it's been a while, Bruin Walk or whichever one where it's like Rate My Professor for UCLA. And upperclassmen just know which professors to take, who not to take, and when you talk to them, you get a better idea, and you can be very strategic with your planning. I'm also first generation, I think all three of us are, and with that, it's very, the legal community could be very gate kept, and when you have peers that are willing to invest their time in you and teach you things, it can go a long way. So please, in the beginning, if there's any like mentee mentor program, sign up for it. That's how I found my mentor. And I think it's very important. Also be a part of cultural and social activities. You're at a university. This is all you've worked for. So make sure you also enjoy it, because when your mental health is good, your academic and every other aspect of your life will be better, because your outlook on the world is different. So make sure you factor in time for your social and personal life, so that you can manage everything. Lastly, imposter syndrome is normal, and it's all about the confidence. Fake it till you make it. So I still feel imposter syndrome sometimes. And when you feel, I think it's important to take a moment for yourself and realize that people in the room that you're in probably feel it too. And it's completely normal. If you don't feel imposter syndrome, great for you, but most people do. And I think that you just have to consistently remind yourself that there's a reason why you're, where you are right now. And even when things get bad, like, the only way is up. So just stay positive. And if you need support, there are so many resources at university that maybe your CC or your previous institution didn't have. You just have to go out and look for it. But yeah, those are just the main points on how to succeed as a transfer student. We have a post actually on how to strive for a high GPA and studying for the LSAT that is on our Instagram page at WILP. So please check that out. There's great content, and it's a lot more detailed than this because we are here only for a short amount of time. But with that said, I will now pass it on to Miriam for the law school applications.
Yeah, on that point, I was actually also going to refer back to our Instagram because we have a very detailed post about this specifically, but just to kind of give a brief overview and for things that I think are important to look out for, especially in the beginning of your undergrad journey, whether you're a transfer or not. I know we've all emphasized keeping your GPA up, and that is one of the biggest things. There is a large numbers component to the law school application, and that is our LSAT and GPA. As far as the GPA goes, understanding that, for example, the Law School Admission Council recalculates your GPA when you're applying. That's something that you don't really know until it's time to apply. So that's why it's important to earn A pluses, because oftentimes they will weigh an A plus as a 4.3 on the GPA scale rather than a 4.0. So that's something to keep in mind. If you can rack up those A pluses, that can only benefit you. Another thing is with your LSAT, one thing that as a first generation student, I didn't really click for me is that if you're hoping to go straight into law school right after undergrad, you would be preparing your application for the fall of your senior year. And so that would mean you would have had to take the LSAT sometime prior, either the summer or the spring, or maybe even the fall of your junior year. So being aware of when you're going to start studying and when you're going to take the LSAT, which application cycle you're hoping to enter, those are all very important things that aren't really outright told right away when you start this journey. And in addition, there are a lot of changes that happen in the law school application era between the test, between how things are calculated, even things that, people say don't matter, maybe do matter, but like rankings, things are constantly changing. So trying to stay in the loop and understanding all of these little aspects are definitely going to help you in the long run if you're familiar with them. The other thing is letters of recommendation. I would sincerely recommend you attend office hours, especially if you end up at a big public university. There's often 200 students, maybe 100 students in your class. Your professor may not know you by name right away. And that's totally normal. I mean, the bulk of my classes were taken during COVID and were online. And so it was kind of difficult for me to form these relationships as well. And that's completely normal. Most professors will still write you a letter of recommendation if you ask and kind of give a little bit of information about yourself and why you want to go to law school. But it is entirely a lot easier if you kind of have a head start on that and form those relationships early on. Regarding your personal statement, my advice would be to I mean, in general, I think we should all kind of keep tabs on ourselves, our achievements, moments that make us realize what we want to do and why. And I would say kind of going over those points is going to be the most helpful part of your personal statement, because it will help you formulate the answer to why you want to go to law school and why that specific law school. Especially as a lot of law schools are known for specialties in certain fields. And so kind of having that understanding of yourself and keeping tabs and checking in with yourself throughout your journey is going to help that be a lot easier. And lastly, with your resume, honestly, a lot of law schools don't even really look for legal experience. I know a lot of us feel like that is the number one thing, but I think seeing that you are passionate and are holding officer positions in any kind of role, any kind of community is something that is beneficial, because at the end of the day, we all know that the law kind of extends into every aspect of life. And so having a clear understanding once again of yourself and those reasons why you want to be in law school, as well as what makes you you, is at the end of the day what you're trying to communicate in your resume and your strongest skill set. And that's kind of just a short overview, but going through the law school application cycle now, there are just some things where, you know, if I had known about them earlier on, it maybe would have saved me a lot of time that I spent scrambling trying to figure it out. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say look for online resources. A lot of the LSAT prep companies also do posts and tutoring. We, of course, also try to give as many tips as we can as we come across them. And yeah, I think utilize your resources. That's a really big one, whether that's mentorships or online communities. Reddit's a little bit controversial, but it does end up telling you some things that you may not have otherwise known. So I would say definitely use your resources and don't stress. Everyone's going to make it out on the other side. I have to remind myself that every day right now, but it's just one chapter, and then after it, you're going to be in law school, hopefully. So just take your time and don't stress too much.
Thank you, Miriam, for that. Just one more point that I kind of wanted to add on as someone who's, or all three of us are kind of in this process. I think give yourself grace. It is very challenging, especially when you're first gen and you don't know things. There are a lot of resources and people out there to help guide you and invest in you. Just reach out if you really need support for someone that might be at the law school that you want. You can contact us through our Instagram page at LegalWILP, and we'll try to answer any of the questions you have. But it takes time and patience. So if your timeline doesn't go exactly as planned, that's okay. Be flexible, give yourself grace. Everyone goes through this, and this is a tough process, but once you're on the other side, like Miriam said, it does become better. Is there any parting words, Ellen, that you want to share about this page? Okay, so I think that's kind of all for the presentation we have today. We're going to stop sharing for questions, and I think we can stop the recording for right now, and then we'll answer any of the questions as they come. So we're going to resume with questions. And we're going to check out the chat. We're going to continue recording, and we're back from our temporary pause, just in case any of the questions could help someone in the future. That's a great question. We have one about what made you interested in law specifically. Ellen, do you want to jump in and share your story about it?
Yes, of course. This is actually a question about which I was thinking recently, because I was working on my personal statement and for law school applications, and then you basically have to explain why you want to be a lawyer and why law specifically. So I think for me specifically, growing up, I just noticed around me how communities were suffering from a lot of injustices, and they just did not have any support, especially coming from bigger and more powerful organizations or countries. So that is something that just stuck with me growing up, and I just knew that I want to somehow be involved in helping these communities to fight these injustices that they're suffering from. And what I realized throughout my journey is that through becoming an attorney, I can be part of organizations that fight to bring justice to these communities, to fight for human rights, that fight for equality. So that's something that just stuck with me growing up. And I just discovered through my journey that I can help these communities as an attorney, which I know sounds very cliche, but I think at the end of the day, that's just something that we all want to do, help people who suffer. And I think I know that working in a private field right now, I'm working in a private field right now, but eventually my goal is to transfer it to public field and to just be a part of the community that helps people.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ellen, for that. Miriam, do you want to share your story a bit?
Sure. I mean, very similarly, I'm a first generation student and American. And as a result, I think growing up, I saw a lot of ways that bureaucratic practices kind of hinder people who are outside of the current system from advancing, and not just like legally speaking. I've seen it in the educational system. I was placed in like English language learners classes, which I quickly understood were though like designed to be helpful, they also kept students separated in different tracks, for example. And it was a very lengthy process to try to get me into kind of like the standard class. So just experiences like that were very frustrating, I think, experiencing. And as I grew up, I learned to understand that there are certain rules and certain ways to go about these rules. And the best way to learn those rules is by knowing the law, knowing why these policies came to be, knowing the history of them, and how they continue to stand today. I will also say that my educational journey played a big role in that. I went to a humanities magnet school. We had a very extensive social justice focus, and I think through that, I also learned a lot about how everything we do today, kind of was a descendant of something that's happened in the past. My high school, for example, and magnet programs generally in Los Angeles were a product of desegregation. And so it's so interesting to learn how histories and policies create things down the road that we can't even imagine, really. And so as a result of those experiences, I decided I wanted to learn who makes the rules, why they make the rules the way they do, and how you go about either changing them or I guess abiding by them. And as a result, a lot of what I am kind of inclined to do is educational work. I think it's really important to have legal literacy. I think that, as we've spoken about before, this kind of arena is kind of gate capped, and it is kind of there's the whole notion of like legalese. It's not very easily understood, especially for people who are from other countries who don't speak the language. And so a lot of what I want to do is about making it more accessible, and both in the public interest front, but also just generally, which is why I'm also interested in academia.
Wonderful. Thank you, Miriam. My experience and interest in the law is very similar to both of you. I think I grew up in a community where I witnessed a lot of violence, and I think that interested me a lot in speaking out. And I just always felt like I had a strong moral inclination to try to do the right thing and make sure that people who don't have a voice are heard. And the only way that I feel like you can truly enact change is through the legal process, because these laws are bound forever, and the way you interpret them impact generations to come. So I'm not fully interested in the legislative side of things. I'm more so interested in how you understand the law and how you can use that to protect the people that you love, because a lot of people don't have the confidence or the courage or the privilege to be in spaces that can make change or help other people. And I feel very fortunate that I get to pursue a career and understand something that's so fundamental to society. The law governs us in all aspects. So that's why I'm going in. And then we have one last question here, which says, you all said you are first generation. What was your experience navigating school and the legal field? So I'll quickly jump on that and pass it on to Ellen and then Miriam. But for me, being first gen, in all aspects, it was significantly challenging. I moved around a lot when I was younger too. I've never been in a school for more than 3 years. And when you move around a lot, you actually fall behind in your academic career because you're in a new environment, you're trying to get acclimated. And again, the whole imposter syndrome thing, you just never really feel good enough. And academically, I think up until high school, I was very behind, and my family doesn't necessarily speak the best English. They don't know how the system in the US works. They immigrated here when I was born. So navigating school and being someone who has a lot of dreams, I always felt like there was a big gap between where I wanted to be and where I am. And I had to learn to navigate my own expectations and give myself grace that if I want to do something, it takes time, and reaching out for help is important. I think the best way when you're first gen to understand what's going on around you is, we're in the digital age. You just have to look it up. You see someone that's doing something you want to do, you send them a cold email, ask if you can have a coffee chat with them, understand their story, and then, do something. If you see that there is a gap and you have a skill set that you think you can bring to, make something better, do that. When I saw that there was a gap with women in the legal field, that's what inspired me to help create Legal, and it's been such a fulfilling experience. And for me, navigating school and the legal field is what you make of it. If you want something done, you just have to go in head first. It will be hard, it will be challenging, but you just have to have faith that everything happens for a reason. And as long as you work your best, you're a good person, help people around you, I think you'll be fine. And again, asking for help is very important to get guidance. Ellen?
Well, similarly to Reedy, it was also very challenging for me to navigate the education system in general as a first gen, because I felt like other students were getting all these resources while I wasn't even aware of them. But later on, I realized that what helped me personally was just creating a community with people who were also first generation, and just honestly just figuring the field out on our own, because I realized that I'm not gonna get so just I'm not gonna get the support from anywhere else unless I reach out for it. So I started to reach out more to people, to ask questions, to ask for advice, for guidance. And as really emphasized, it is very important to reach out for support. Maybe if it's a law student and you want to and you're interested in their journey and you want to ask how they got to where they are. I think just even not even an email, maybe just an Instagram DM, just asking if they have a few minutes to chat. And in the beginning, I was very hesitant about reaching out to people, but later on, I realized how people are helpful when they see that you're actually interested in their journey and you're actually interested in getting advice. So I think what helped me as well is just creating a community around me of people who are also very motivated to achieve their goals, and who are just such support to each other, and also just reaching out to other people for advice, for help, is what personally helped me throughout my journey. And I'll pass it on to Miriam.
I'll say that if you're watching this, you're already probably doing the best thing you can for yourself. I think as generation student, especially, when I was graduating, or I guess when I was in high school, I didn't even know that community college was a thing. I didn't know that it was becoming more and more prevalent to go to CC and then transfer, save yourself some money, get your GEs out of the way, and ideally like transfer to an institution of your choosing. I didn't even really know that that was a thing till pretty late into my high school journey. So I think that you guys are already doing an incredible job. And I think, like it was already said, creating communities where this information is shared, where these resources are passed along is really important. And I think that's a lot of what Legal tries to do at every campus, on every platform we're on. We're just trying to kind of pass that information to who may not have it. I would say that don't be shy. I think I'm pretty timid and I feel like I get really uncomfortable in social situations sometimes, but I think it's worth it to take that leap and kind of overcome that anxiety or fear and, ask the question, connect with that person, have a small conversation with a professor, even if it's just to say hi. I think a lot of times I've been struggling with feeling like I self-select out of opportunities and places. And I think my biggest advice would be to let yourself take up space, let you ask questions, let yourself not know. And, from there, you can kind of figure it out. But don't be scared to kind of move forward, and don't be scared to make those connections and find your people, find the places you like, and honestly don't even be scared to find places you don't like, because at least then you'd know that it's not for you. But that's pretty much all I have to add.
Thank you for that. That's kind of all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And as always, if you have any questions, you can reach us through legal@wilp.com or our Instagram page.